Somehow with GoToMeeting, I'm not able to do a virtual background. I haven't figured that out yet.
No, I don't believe it allows it.
Oh, okay. Hi, Veronica. Hi, Brett.
Hello.
Okay, so it's 4 o'clock. And let me see if I've got everything up here. We ready to go, Sonia?
We are ready. I'm sorry, my mic was muted. We are ready.
Okay, Alex, you okay? You ready?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. All set.
Okay. Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone, or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the City Council meeting of October 7th, 2020, starting at 4 p.m. Temporary public comment email established for the City of Los Banos, the City Council of October 7th, 2020. Emails must be received by 4 p.m. The city has established a temporary email address. Citizens can use to email public comments on any agenda item limited to 250 words or less. Any public comments received by October 7th, 2020 prior to 4 p.m. will be read aloud during the appropriate time and agenda item. The email address is cityclerk@losbanos.org. Public comment during the public hearings will be taken in real time via email. Once the public hearing is opened, the City Council will pause the meeting in order to receive emails directed at the public hearing, up to 250 words, and will be read. Comment into the record after resuming the meeting. As time permits, please indicate that comments are for the particular public hearing by putting public hearing in the subject line of the email and the title of the public hearing. The council chambers are closed to the public. Those interested in viewing the City Council meeting can do so on the City of Los Banos website at www.youtube.com/watch?V =SC3N Q8A8LUE and feature equals youtube.be. I know that's a long email address, but it is posted, and I don't expect you to remember that by the way I read it. So at this time, I would like to call this meeting to order at 4:01 p.m. And Chief Breezy, would you lead us in the flag salute?
Certainly, Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the
United States of America, to the republic which is one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Gary, did you black out? We didn't hear anything, but we went through it. Chief, are you still there?
Mayor, can you hear me? Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry about that. Can you
Yes. Okay.
make it through it okay?
Yes, we did. Thank you. Okay.
My apologies, Mayor.
Not a problem. Okay, let's go on to roll call. City Clerk Melanie?
Faria? I think you're on mute, Tom.
There you go.
Johnson Santos.
Here.
Stone?
Here.
Lewis?
Here.
Peralta?
Here, we do have a quorum. Okay, let's go on to item 4, consideration of approval of agenda. Staff is requesting an item be added to the agenda regarding accepting public improvements for lots 145 through 155 for the East Center Development Phase 2A, Pioneer Development Company Incorporated. Note that there is an immediate need to take action. The need arose after the posting of the agenda, and the action needs to be taken because of several relocating first-time home buyers in the East Center Phase 2A development are in jeopardy of losing their loan lock should the request acceptance of public improvements be delayed to the next city council meeting. So what we're going to need, if you want to accept this, council, is a 4/5 vote. And basically what happened, this agenda item came to us after the publishing of the present agenda, and it would need to be added because we have people that are in jeopardy of not being able to have their loan locked. So this normally, I was informed, this normally would have been a consent agenda item. All the improvements to the lots have been made, and according to the city, and at this time, with the council's approval, we could place this on the consent agenda item
Jay.
I don't know, H-I-J, right?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, item J.
Item J. So if that is acceptable to the council, we could do that, but I would need a motion and a second to add the following item to the agenda, and it would be item K on the consent agenda. Do I have such a motion?
Motion, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Lewis.
Do I have a second?
Mayor.
Second.
Okay, let's see, Mr. Jones.
Item J.
Item K.
It's J. J. Item J. It would be item J. J.
A, B, C, D.
and K.
I, J, yeah, J. Item J. What did I say? Item K?
K.
I'm sorry, item J. Item J. All right, so, Mrs. Lewis, is that okay? Item J?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item J, to place on the agenda a resolution accepting public improvement for lots 145 to 155 for the East Center Development Phase 2.
Okay, consent agenda, all right?
Consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Jones, do you have, is that second still go?
Yes, it is, Mayor.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Lewis and a second by Jones is read by title, placing on the consent agenda item J. And I'll call for a roll call, and we will go to, let's see here, Mr. Faria.
Yes.
Johnson Santos.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Villalta, yes. Motion carries unanimously. So we have added item J to the consent agenda. And now, as normal, we will vote on the consent agenda at that item. Okay? So now let's go on to, now let's approve the consideration of approval of agenda. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Faria and second by Santos for the approval of the agenda and adding item J to the consent agenda, which we've already voted on. Okay, Mr. Faria?
Yes.
Johnson Santos,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Galalto, yes. Okay? All right. Now let's go on to public forum. Item 5. Members of the public may address the city council members on any item of public interest that is within the jurisdiction of the city council, includes agenda and non-agenda items. No action will be taken on non-agenda items, and speakers are limited to a 5-minute presentation. Speakers are limited to comments by submitting a written statement limited to 250 words or less by dropping it off at the utility payment box at City Hall, 520 J Street, or by mail or by mailing to the city clerk at losbanos.org. Comments received will be read into the record during the city council meeting. And Director Melanie, I'm going to pause the meeting for a minute, and would you please refresh to find out if we have any comments?
I have 3 comments.
Okay, are they dealing with COVID, or are they dealing with a specific agenda item, or are they just general?
One comment is regarding agenda item number 9, regarding the Peninsula Clean Energy Authority.
All right.
So I don't know if you want me to read that now or wait till that item.
Let's wait till that item on that one.
And then the other 2 comments are general.
All right, go ahead and read those 2 comments, please.
The first comment, Honorable City Council, elected officials, my name is Jean Lang. I'm writing this to express my strong opposition to Proposition 16. Proposition 16 uses race to judge the qualification of applicants to universities, to jobs, etc. This is a textbook definition of racism, pure and simple. If it is passed, how far will we slide down this slippery, dangerous slope? What's next? Set racial quota for elected positions. Set racial quota for NBA and NFL. Set racial quota for TV anchors. Set racial quota for movies and songs. Please join us to vote no against Proposition 16. Please read my comments in the City Council meeting. Thanks, Jean Lane.
Okay.
The next comment, dear City Council, I'm a concerned resident. I'd like to express my feeling about State Measure 16 and urge anyone who discusses racial discrimination to vote against it on November 3rd. State Measure 16 is against the law and is legalizing discrimination. Please help to stop discrimination of any race in our community and in our state. I believe we should treat everyone equally, give them the opportunity to become successful in this great state. Vote no on State Measure 16. Thanks, Melinda Fuzazi. And those are the comments I've received so far.
Okay, is there anyone online who would like to comment at the public forum? That's listening into this meeting now. Okay, not hearing anyone. And before we close the public forum, people understand that I need to make this statement just for clarification. That is a state measure, which is Proposition 16. This is not within the purview of the Los Banos City Council. The comments reflect a state measure, which will be voted on in November at this election. Okay, if there are no other comments for the public forum, I will now close the. Let's see, let's go here. I will now close the public forum, bring it back to council level, and we will go on to item 6, consideration of approval of consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and voted on in one motion unless removed from the consent agenda by a city council member. And Director Maloney, would you just please read item J into the record too as part of the consent agenda?
Yes, I will, Mayor.
Thank you.
Items on the consent agenda are as follows. Warrant numbers 223801 through 224058 in the amount of $1,203,093.90. City Council Resolution number 6263, approving the Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Los Banos and the County of Merced, Department of Public Health, Division of Environmental Health regarding on-site wastewater treatment systems. City Council Resolution number 6264, authorizing the city manager execute the cooperative agreement for local improvements between the state of California, acting through its Department of Transportation, referred to as Caltrans, and the City of Los Banos for the cost for the material and installation of an optic emergency vehicle detector in Caltrans traffic signal at State Route 152 on 11th Street. City Council Resolution number 6265, accepting public improvements for Dove Hollow, the Villages 7, Phase 1B Anderson Homes, generally located within the area bounded by Cardozo Road to the north, Pioneer Road to the south, Badger Flat Road to the east, and Merced County APN 430-060-002, and the Los Banos Creek to the west. City Council Resolution number 6266, approving a side letter agreement by and between the City of Los Banos and the Public Employees Union Local 1 AFSCME Public Works Unit regarding health benefits. City Council Resolution number 6267, approving a tentative agreement, memorandum of understanding by and between the City of Los Banos and the Los Banos Police Officers Association from October 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. City Council Resolution number 6268, approving a tentative agreement, memorandum of understanding by and between the City of Los Banos and the Los Banos Police Sergeants Association from October 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. City Council Resolution number 6269, approving a tentative agreement, memorandum of understanding by and between the City of Los Banos and the Los Banos Firefighters Association from October 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. City Council Resolution number 6270, amending Division 4 salary schedule, employee classifications relating to changes to Section F, Fire, and Section G, Police, associated with the LBPOA, LBPSA, and the LBFFA, tentative agreements and memorandums of understanding. And item J, City Council Resolution number 6273, accepting public improvements which have been substantially completed for lots 145 through 115, fronting Amabile Drive of East Center Phase 2A. And the items are to be approved as submitted.
Thank you, Director Maloney. Is there anyone who wishes to have a consent agenda item removed from the consent agenda for discussion? Not hearing anyone, I will now entertain a motion for the consent agenda, including new item J.
Mayor,
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Tom.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as submitted with the addition of item J.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Mayor, Councilmember Lewis, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. It's been motioned by Faria, second by Lewis, for the approval of the consent agenda, items A through I, with the addition of item J. Faria?
Yes.
Johnson Santos?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Peralta, yes. Motion carries unanimously. Item 7, Parks and Recreation Update Presentation. Information only. No action to be taken. Parks and Rec Operations Manager Helm.
Good evening. I hope you can hear me. So thank you for having me. This will be presenting an update on our Parks and Rec right now, and we'll be going through some exciting projects that we've been working on. Last time I was in front of council was February, so that was before all this COVID stuff happened here. So it's been a unique and challenging time since then, especially in Parks and Rec. So much of what we normally do is encourage social gatherings and activity. And it's really been kind of a bizarre world since. So it's kind of given us an opportunity to pause and reflect and evaluate for the future. And I think through the projects and activities that I'll be talking about tonight, you'll see that we're really looking into the future for parks in Los Banos. You can click the next slide. So these are some of the topics that I'll be going over tonight. If there's additional comments at the end of this presentation, I have it listed as well. But please email parksandrecreation@losbanos.org. That's one word, parksandrecreation@losbanos.org. And comments, questions, inquiries, any of those sorts of comments that you might have, please reach out and let me know. So I also wanted to let you guys know about our rec side of things. Obviously, our recreation has been shut down due to COVID, but we have been we had a blood drive, we have the testing site at the community center. Of course, we'll have the elections at the community center and at the College Greens facility here at the beginning of November. So we'll continue to kind of have activities where we can, and as restrictions open up, hopefully get back to our recreation programs.
Joe?
Yeah.
Mr. Heim?
Yeah.
You're fading in and out.
Oh, sorry.
We can barely hear you.
The video is, or the mic, sorry. Is the video or the mic, are they both having issues?
It's mostly audio, Joe.
You see it.
Mostly on the audio, yes.
Okay. I have it on max here. If I speak a little louder, does that help?
Yes.
Okay. So I also wanted to update this. We had submitted the staff report by the time we opened our parks for restricted use last week, and I wanted to touch on that as well before I got into the presentation. So on Friday, we were able to get postings out at the parks and as well as on Facebook and the city website for parks to be reopened. They are reopened for restricted use. We are following state guidelines regarding masks on playgrounds and the surrounding areas. One unique item that the state recommends is not to eat food or drink. That's purely to reduce the amount of time that you might be taking off your mask in that area. There's a number of other recommendations, such as limiting your visits, visiting the playground with members of your household, and similar recommendations. So those are posted online as well as each park. And again, please reach out if you have any questions. If you could click the next slide here. So our first project that I'd like to talk about is the dog park. This project we're really very excited about. Construction's coming to a close here in the next week, but we do have a growth period after that before we open. And very excited about it again. I know I presented a couple times in the dog park, but there is a small dog area and a mixed dog use area. And the red square that you see on the presentation, that's the dog park as a whole. And you know, we're really hoping that it brings social activity to that complex and is something that really becomes a popular amenity for Los Banos parks. We do have the ordinances posted online. If you go to the municipal code and search for it, you can find it there. You can also find it under the Parks and Recreation page on losbanos.org. We have it posted there as well as on Facebook. And just before I finish up with the dog park here, I'd like to thank our staff for what they've done on it. Our director, Mark Facian, Carlos, Mike, everybody. It really wouldn't be possible without them. So it's something we're very excited about, and hopefully you got a chance to drive by the construction and see some of the progress that's been going on out there. The next slide.
Are we going to have some kind of dedication?
We will. It's a complicated answer, right, because of COVID. So
Right.
we want to have a grand opening, but we're thinking something possibly in the spring. Hopefully, when gatherings are allowed. Obviously, this is something we want to celebrate, but we want to do it safely. So once we're allowed to do gatherings, that's probably the first event that I would like to see happen.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So another project that we're working on, and this one's really for the future of Parks and Rec, is the Parks Master Plan. We're closing towards the end of the process at this point. We had a very successful public meeting in January before COVID, and we followed it up in September with a virtual meeting. We were set for a March meeting for the Parks Master Plan, but of course that was the exact week of the breakouts with closures relating to COVID. So we pushed it off, hoping that we could have in-person meetings, and then we eventually settled with the September 10th public meeting. From August 14th to September 17th, we held an open survey for the community to respond. We got about 400 respondents, almost 400 respondents for that, and was really happy with the feedback. The questions were multi-choice, but there was also open-ended answers, which sifting through those comments, it was quite a bit of work, but it was very interesting, great. All the comments, positive, negative, were something that we're not going to just use for the Parks Master Plan, but also just in general for future planning of anything relating with parks. It was very helpful for us. With this Parks Master Plan, the next meeting, the next action point for it is going to be our commission. The date here is actually October 20th. I apologize for that. It's on the commission there on the regularly scheduled Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. That'll be held virtually, and we have that login information as well on losbanos.org under Parks and Rec, as well as on Facebook. And of course, again, please email in any comments or anything that you might have relating to the Parks Master Plan. I'm happy to always look through those and read those and respond to those. Following the Parks and Rec Commission meeting, which will be a draft review of the plan, we'll finish up the plan, review comments from that meeting, and then I'll be returning with QK Engineering, who we are consulting with on the project, and we'll be presenting to City Council here, possibly in person by then, but hopefully, if not, we'll do it virtually. So the Parks Master Plan is something that I'm really excited about. Obviously, many of the projects are something that require significant funding. So that's something that what we want to do here is really lay the groundwork for that. We want this to be a 15-year plan. We want to be able to make plans and not just constantly say, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we had this? So funding and those sorts of hurdles are something that we can long-term plan for, that we can seek third-party funding from, grants, donations, those sorts of things. So just very excited about the process with that. If you want to go to the next slide.
Joe, before you move to the next slide, you had indicated, this is Deborah, some positive and negative responses in the narratives that you received, the open-ended questions. Is that something that you guys are still holding to your breast right now, or can you reveal any of that information to the council?
No, I mean, there was probably over 1,000 comments in total, so I think it would be hard for me to sum it up. But I know a lot of the comments were things that we were aware of. A lot of our facilities have gone into disrepair. Pacheco Park, for example, is a good example of a park that's become aged and facilities have deteriorated. And we got a lot of comments relating to, we want to have things that we're proud of as a community, and on top of being proud as a community, also amenities that we can use. Of course, the pickleball group is very popular in town. They want pickleball. The skateboarders were really heavy participators in both community meetings. Of course, I'll talk about it later, but there were a lot of people asking for a splash pad. And of course, as we know, aquatic center, those sorts of items that people can use were really popular comments. And there was some criticism in the sense of, only providing playgrounds or walking paths and things like that. So I would say that would be the focus of the two, the comments that were kind of on the negative side. And again, the way that, we view that is that those are points for us to grow from and to plan for. So, the survey results, I'm trying to put it in a format that we can share online. I have it in an Excel document, but they're going to be included as part of the Parks Master Plan. So you'll be able to review them in the plan as well, the results as well as questions and anything to do with it. So they will be available.
Well, thank you for sharing some of them with the council now. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So this is another project that I'm excited about. We were lucky enough during COVID to be awarded the CAL FIRE CCI, which is climate conservation investments. Climate it has to do with climate control, and the state has given funding for to reduce the impact of emissions, of anything to do that might impact global warming type of environmental issues. And so through this grant, there's a number of different options with this grant that you can be awarded for. So some cities, you might see larger tree planting or embankments along coastal regions where they're redoing those areas to make them safer. For us, what we pursued was to fund 100 trees to plant in 5 park locations, fund training for our staff, as well as the largest part of it, establishing the first urban forest management plan for the city of Los Banos. And what this is going to be critical for us beyond just planting for trees is that it'll make us eligible for those other elements within this grant in the future. So if we wanted to pursue a larger tree planting grant down the road, we would be more eligible for that once we complete this. So that's kind of the other half of the benefit of this grant. The urban forest management plan, which right now we're in the draft, we're reviewing the draft of the RFP. We'll be going out for a consultant to work on this with us. This plan is really meant to be as long as a 50-year plan for the city in terms of how we manage our trees and our plans for the future canopy in Los Banos. Obviously, we have something like 300 days of sun every year. So I know I walk my dog all over the place, and it can be brutal when you don't have shade. And so whether it be our parks or our right-of-ways or anywhere that's a city managed space, it's important for us to provide canopy analysis. And one area that I notice in town is we have a lot of aging Modesto ash. Well, so, we have canopy, but it's not canopy that's going to be long-term. So being able to plan for the replacement of those aging trees is going to be critical for us moving forward. I know for me, visiting other communities, when you see large trees and when you're driving through or walking through, it really just makes a huge difference. So this is one that I'm really excited about, and it's something that we've never done before in terms of taking a thorough review of our trees in Los Banos. So the city of Merced just completed their process. They were awarded a similar grant the year prior. City of Tracy is also going through it right now. I think they're about 3/4 of the way through there. So something that I think CAL FIRE is really pushing the Central Valley to start getting these urban forest management plans. I know a lot of the Bay Area has already completed this. So it's something I'm very excited about. The grant is required to be completed by March 30th, 2024. We'll likely complete that a number of years before that. As I said, we'll be going out for the RFP here in the next couple months once the draft has been reviewed, and then we release it for consultants to look at. The whole process will probably take between 12 and 14 months. So it is, going to be over a year in time, but should be complete well before the 2024 mark. Do you want to put the next slide unless there's any questions? This is another project that I'm very excited about. It's Pacheco Park SPP grant, which is a statewide park program grant through California State Parks and the Prop 68 funding. We applied for this last year. I believe I presented on it last year as part of a presentation, as well as we held 5 or 6 public meetings, and I visited a couple high school classes as well regarding this project. We're going to be pursuing this same project at Pacheco Park. There will be some updates, and as you can see on the right, we do have a couple public meetings coming up. One's virtual, October 15th at 5 p.m. We've had a couple public meetings with the splash pad, and one thing I noticed was it's difficult for people to get out and do the virtual public meeting. I think it's something that we're not used to just yet. So we also added the October 17th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. open house at the community center. This is something where masks are required, and we're going to do it in the grand room. We're only going to allow up to 10 people in at a time. So it's going to be something that we're trying to keep safe distances as best as possible, while still providing an in-person option for this project. The submission is due December 14th, 2020. I don't expect to change a lot of elements from last year's submission. However, there are some specific elements that we would like to spend some more time to review. Specifically, the parking lot. We had a parking lot on the north side of the museum where the old Dare building was, right on the highway. And we really want to look at the entrance and exit points, considering Highway 152 there, the circulation within the parking lot. So that's one that we really wanted to look at. But I think for the most part, and of course we'll receive more public input on the 15th and 17th, but I think we were really happy with some of the elements that we were proposing. Splash pad, a playground, the Veterans Memorial Wall, working with the veterans groups in town, sports courts, and replacement of the rec hall facility, as well as site improvements such as turf, trees, providing shade, lighting, and of course the parking lot that I discussed. So I think we were really happy with that. Pacheco Park, for me, and I think going through the process last year, I really learned that it's something that really unifies people in town. People that grew up here, it's really something, a park that's has some sentimental value to them. They grew up there, they enjoyed that park, swam in the pool that used to be adjacent to it. And for the newer people in town, it's one of the most recognizable parks in town along 152, and I think it's just an easy landmark for parks in Los Banos, and it's one of my highest priorities, one of our highest priorities to get it renovated, and this is an amazing opportunity for it. We do expect results to be back about September of 2021, so about 9 months after submission. It could be sooner than that, but that's kind of what I had heard in terms of when it will be reviewed and then submitted back to us. So we're really hopeful for it. The good news on this particular round for the SBP grant is there's almost twice as much funding available. So last round, I think there was something in the range of about $250 million available for statewide, with a maximum request of $8.5 million. This year's round will have $395 million available. So there's quite a bit more money available, and so therefore there'll probably be about 40% more winners. Of course, it depends on the size of grants and who's awarded, but there's significantly more funding available this year for statewide projects for that grant. This is the final year for the grant until future funding is awarded. They had done 2 previous rounds back in 2008, 2006, 2008 range, and then they had come back and gotten this Prop 68 in 2018. And released these last year's round and this year's round. So something that we're really excited about, and I hope that you and anybody listening is able to attend either of our meetings. And if not, always, again, reach out to me via email. Happy to discuss it. If there's no questions, I can go to the next slide.
I do have one question, Joe, if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
My question is concerning the fact that we had a visit from the initiators of the I'm sorry, I'm probably looking at things the wrong way. We had a visit last year from the writers of the grant. Will we be, I guess if we are in the running, do you know if that we are looking at something similar, or will they be going off of last year's type of results?
Yeah, so it'll be a complete start over. Now, the guidelines haven't changed. So the grant itself, we scored perfectly in all the categories except for the top two, which were income level and park acreage within the half-mile radius. Obviously, those are two that we can't really control. So that side of things, nothing will really change in terms of that. As far as we should be able to meet all the guidelines. We should be able to fulfill all those, even if we adjust some of the elements within the grant itself. But if we were selected for a site visit, that process would be completely new. They wouldn't use last year's results. Of course, being human, I'm sure they'd be a little bit more familiar with the project, but it's essentially a new grant altogether. If Pacheco Park is, I think, our highest priority in terms of renovating a park, but we could have gone a different direction with another park, and of course that would have been a completely new process. So we did get a site visit from last year from California State Parks, which we were really fortunate to get. I know not all the projects that applied got that, but unfortunately we weren't selected for it.
Thank you.
So another project that I think everybody is very excited about, I know going through our Parks Master Plan process, even going back to last year's Pacheco Park public meetings, a splash pad is something that everybody's excited about. And the reason for it is really pretty simple. Of course, it's hot here, right? We don't have a water feature in town. We haven't had one in about 10 years. And so this is something that I think a lot of people visit other communities and they've really enjoyed it. I know my experience going to any parks with splash pads has always been just kids having fun, simple as that. So, we've been excited to work on this project. It's also another element that we really value with the splash pad is that it's free to use. It has free access, and of course that benefits the whole community, low income, middle income, any level. It really will provide something to do, something fun, family oriented for the community. And that's one thing that we really try to consider with these concepts and with this project in general was, we know this amenity is going to be popular. We know this is going to be a big deal for a lot of families in this community. And that's one of the reasons why we selected the 3 locations that we chose to analyze was Ag Sports Complex has a large parking lot. Ranchwood Park also has a large parking lot. And Pacheco Park, of course, it doesn't have a parking lot, but we are looking at that, as well as, of course, it's the central park in town. So that was kind of, really one of the main deciding factors in selecting these 3 locations as possible locations for a splash pad. And what we did was we held a public meeting last Thursday on the 29th there. We did that virtually. And what we did was we went through some concepts that we had a consultant put together relating to the 3 locations. And we accepted public comments on those elements. We also discussed some elements that are required for splash pads. So things like a restroom within 300 feet, other requirements like a 4-inch water line, things like that we really felt like that are required from there. We also felt like there were some other elements that really need to be considered: shade, fencing, anything along those lines that we really wanted to discuss, and so we were able to go through that with them. So the next steps for this project will be to select a location. We just held this public meeting on Thursday. This morning, I actually just finished up a document, about 25-page document for a comprehensive review of where we've gone so far, where we've been so far, and where we're going, and any recommendations that we were able to provide. I did not recommend, or staff did not recommend any single location, but simply put them in scenarios of how we would need to proceed with them. For example, if you were to do it at Ranchwood Park, you would need to build a restroom. If you would do it at Pacheco Park, consideration of parking, those sorts of items. So that will be provided. I provided to Mark and Fred already. I'll be providing to Alex, and we'll need to figure out our selection process from there. After we've selected a location, we'll need to go to design, have an engineer design the project and any site improvements. After that, we are funded this fiscal year for design. After that, we'll have to seek funding for construction. We intend to request that from the Park Development Fund, but that has not been requested or allocated at this point.
Joe,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Hine?
Yeah.
Yeah. The money's there in park development fees. Is that correct?
There is funding there, yes.
Okay, so we have sufficient funding for the splash pad.
Yes, we do. Of course, you want to balance what your expenses are on a project. Any of these projects can exceed what we want to spend on a particular project. A splash pad, for example, varies in size. What we really asked for was something that's bigger than a basketball court. The reason being that, especially given that we have the one splash pad in town, I know Fresno has something like 7 in their community, and so having just one in town, it's going to be popular. It's going to be used. So we wanted to make sure it was good enough size to host a long Saturday of kids coming in and out all day. But there's also other site improvement amenities, shade structures, benches, things like that. Obviously you can add or not have as many as you want. You can see in this picture where the big bucket is. There's kind of a shade sail structure back behind there. There's other splash pads that have them all over the place. One thing that we brought up in the public meeting, which seemed to be received well, was to have shade structures nearby that can be rented by the public for birthdays and other celebrations. These would be non-exclusive use of the splash pad, but they would be staging areas for your birthday. And that would be a way to generate some revenue to help fund the splash pad. A splash pad is very similar to a pool in operation. There is a pool house, all the same technical elements that a pool might have. The splash pad's going to have. So it is a big operation to undertake. So that was something that I know a lot of people were excited about in the virtual meeting, but something that we'd still have to discuss and decide. And so there's a lot of expenses, obviously, that still need to be decided.
Right, but I don't want to dissuade the public, but we were told, a year ago that depending upon the size of the splash pad, we have sufficient funds to build this. And I don't want the public to get the wrong impression that this is something we have to seek grant funding for. Right now, we have the money to fund this project, and I don't want to give the public any other impression than that. And that's why we're moving forward, and at least that's why I was told that we're going to move forward.
I think that's a fair assessment that there is sufficient funding available. I just what I always say is, we always want to be strategic with our funding. The Park Development Fund is something that can fund other major projects in town as well. So you always want to be strategic with the capacity of your funding. But there is sufficient funding within the city funding, and we would need to return to City Council for approval for that.
Thank you. And then if any grant funding or anything else was available, that's only the cream of the crop that we could add on to anything. But I did not want to leave the public with some kind of notion that this was just a pipe dream. So thank you.
No, and we know it's one of the public's highest priorities. It's also one of our highest priorities as a staff. So something that we're very excited about.
If I may,
it's cleared up. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Freya.
Hi, Mr. Heim. When the public input, has there been any kind of preferential leaning towards which location?
So from the Parks Master Plan, we had a question of the 3 locations, Pacheco Park, Ag Sports Complex, and Ranchwood Park. Which would you prefer a splash pad to be located at? Pacheco Park was the highest receiving vote getter. I think it was something, I can't remember the percentage, but it was significantly higher than the other 2. The other 2 did have, I think it was about 40-something%, 45% of it. And the other 2 pretty much split the remaining percentage. Ag Sports Complex was slightly higher than Ranchwood. I felt from the results that there was enough input on all three locations that I wouldn't eliminate any of the three, but Pacheco Park was the clear highest commented positively result.
Thank you very much.
Council, any other questions right now? Go
Mayor,
ahead.
this is Brett Jones.
Go ahead.
I do have some concerns with the possibility of this splash pad going over there at Pacheco Park, with it cutting into maybe possible farmers markets and things like that we may have at that part there, and then plus congestion around the neighborhoods. I'm wondering, with any of these new developments that are coming in, if we can kind of maybe plan it for there to where we can plan a park with adequate parking, where it's not going to cause excessive traffic in the residential neighborhoods, things like that. So are we taking all that into consideration?
Yes, that was something that we went through with the Pacheco Park grant. And of course, we'll be reopening that discussion here next week. It is a concern at Pacheco Park. I think you could build a parking garage there and you'd still have some parking issues there between the football games and all your annual events, the events that you're referencing, barbecue in the park, Mother's Day in the park. Of course, any Parks and Rec activities. So yeah, it's a huge concern. That's one of the reasons why we really recommend building a parking lot with it. Now, I do expect the parking lot to be full, on a daily or at the very least on a weekend basis. So it is a concern, the impact that it makes. Now, I do think the events-wise, we specifically designed the master plan with the Pacheco Park that we submitted for the grant. We specifically designed that to be able to still have car shows and have a large events plaza space. So if anything, we feel like for events, this might be an inviting amenity for people to enjoy. But the parking issue is something that is a significant issue there. And generally speaking, at Pacheco Park, there are some significant site improvements that are required. The turf does share the water system connection with the school district there with the football field. We would recommend splitting that off. And of course, if you're familiar with Pacheco Park, the improvements, are across the board: trees, turf, all those sorts of items. We want to make sure this is a successful splash pad when we put it in. We know there's a social element in the park, or has been in the past, and we want to make sure that it's going to be something that is upkept, safe, and having a highway right there, we want to make sure we have fencing and things like that for kids running around. So all those elements are being looked at, but that is a concern. Not sure if there was another element to your question.
No, you answered it, Joe. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So the last thing I'd like to discuss is Measure H, something that I'm really very excited about and have been since Los Banos voters passed it in fall of November 2018. And it's something that has helped us across the board. Obviously, with COVID, our recreation programs have been restricted. Prior to COVID in February, we were in the process of essentially doubling our programming, something that I'm really proud of. I know our staff is really proud of. Something that I feel the community has really asked for, at least as long as I've been here. So it's something I'm really excited about, and we'll get back to rebuilding the rec program when those restrictions are lifted. It's something that it's been a challenging year on the recreation side, but it's just going to make us more excited to get back to it when we're allowed to. But what we have been able to focus on is on the park side. This fall, we put in an order for City Park Playground over there on E Street there on 9th and E, I believe. And that playground, that park is something that really has needed it for quite a while. And I know I've driven by it a couple times since we've opened parks, and it's been very busy and the park gets used. And I think one of the reasons is that it's one of the only playgrounds in its area, and there's an apartment complex about a block away. So you have a lot of kids that will really benefit and enjoy this playground. So I'm really excited about that. Another thing that we're doing is trying to provide some facility upgrades. We're going to try to paint college greens and the Ranchwood building, as well as some turf improvements. Olivera, we're putting in a fertilizer system there to try and upkeep that turf. Obviously, once we open those sports fields up again. Another element is the aerator that we have on order now, and so hopefully at least by the spring we'll have that available for aeration that we hope to do a couple times a year on at the very least our sports fields and other premium locations. Something that's really gonna help our turf in our parks, and I think that's something that people have talked about is. The city doesn't put funding back into the parks or into the turf, and so this is what Measure H is providing for us. It's really something that's transformational for us, and I hope people can recognize the improvements that have been made already. But I'm personally very excited about the future of where we're going with facilities. One thing that the public probably won't get to see is the Cartograph asset management system that we're working with. As part of Public Works. And this is a software program that'll help us keep track of our projects, of our assets within the parks. And so it's going to help us keep track of playgrounds, to trees, to sidewalks, to missing benches and missing tables and those sorts of things. So we're working on with the Public Works on that side of things. And, I'm really excited about that. That's something that, it's really, it's modern stuff that we're able to use here, and that's great to have. Measure H also provides grant support. So, we haven't submitted a grant this fiscal year, but it's available for funding for conceptual designs, cost estimates that are often required by these grants, and allow us to submit those to be able to get funded for that. So, something that just across the board, Measure H has supported us. It's supported the addition of a staff member. Across the board for me, it's been critical to Parks and Rec. So, it's been a couple years, but I still want to thank the voters for that and hopefully keep this going. One of the biggest elements to Measure H is setting aside capital reserve for projects down the road. That's going to be something that I think you see over the next few years in terms of coming to fruition, in terms of saving that reserve up. So looking forward to that. But in the meantime, these improvements, I think, are very impactful.
I have a comment, if I may, Joe. I'm happy to see that there's going to be providing facility and turf improvements. And it sounds like you're going to be dealing with some of our major parks up front in regards to that. But I certainly hope that as we move down the future, and you've kind of alluded to this, is that it will include the rest of our parks. As developers have, put these parks in, basically what we've done is just watered them and mowed them, and they require food as well, just like human beings, to prosper. So I'm happy to hear that, there's going to be a movement to feed what we've planted. I hope that includes the trees as well as the turf, so that our product that is being put into the ground ends up being healthy, not unhealthy, and just really making our parks look lovely again, and not full of weeds and things that weren't meant to grow there. So thanks for commenting on that area.
Yeah, it's something that I'm really excited about, and kind of as you touched on, to be able to do that incrementally is something that we're really looking forward to. You touched on it, but of course, we will start with our sports fields and some of the kind of more visible locations, but we would like to do as many locations as we can. So that's something that we'll be continuing to work towards. But having our sports fields, and I know. Probably almost every kid in town has played at 7th Street Ballpark or Colorado or over at Olivera. And so to be able to keep those nice and improve them is our goal. So that's the end of the presentation. If there's any questions, please let me know. Like I've kind of said throughout the presentation here, to be able to reflect and plan for the future of parks, it has really been the benefit of this COVID situation that we've been dealing with the last few months. And I'm, really excited for the future of Parks and Rec in Los Banos. I think it's we have so many families here. We have so many people here that really can benefit from it. So I'm really excited about it. And, of course, I'm very passionate about Parks and Rec, so please reach out. The email there goes directly to my email. So I'm happy to discuss any topics. Thank you.
Okay, council members, are there any other questions for Mr. Heim while he's here right now? Not hearing any. I will now close this item. Thank you, Joe. Any comments from staff? Alex, any parting comments?
No real comments, Mayor. It is exciting to see the Parks and Recreation program facilities benefit from Measure H. The programs grow and be developed under Mr. Heim's leadership. So it's exciting to see. The master plan process will be very important for the city going forward to take a thoughtful, strategic approach to new parks and maintaining our current facilities. So I think we're on a good path and looking forward to the next couple of years and building some significant projects for the community. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, Alex. And Joe, thank you so much for the presentation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to item 8, COVID-19 status update. City Council Resolution number 6271, continuing the declaration of existence of a local emergency within the city of Los Banos, COVID-19. And we're going to go to City Manager Terrazas.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this resolution is recommending the continuation of the declaration of the local emergency related to COVID-19. And just by way of an update, an update on our current numbers regarding COVID-19. There have been 9,111 confirmed cases in the county. Currently, there are 29, and I'm reading from the Merced County Public Health Dashboard with the COVID-19 case data. There are 29 active hospitalizations. Unfortunately, 149 deaths in Merced County. In terms of cases for individual cities, there have been or are 3,305 cases in the city of Merced, 1,322 cases in Atwater, and 1,146 cases in Los Banos. There has been a recent development and information provided by the county. The county has moved to the less restrictive tier as designated by the state of California. So Merced County has moved from the purple tier to the red tier. This color-coded tiering has been developed by the state of California. And I wouldn't normally read from a press release, but just so I don't misspeak, I'm going to read the press release or portions of the press release that were issued by Merced County yesterday. So again, we have moved from the purple tier to the red tier. And what that means is under the red tier, some non-essential indoor businesses will be allowed to resume operations. Businesses authorized to reopen under this less restrictive tier include dance studios. Dance studios can open indoors with 10% max capacity. Gyms and fitness centers can also open indoors with 10% capacity. Higher education institutions, which includes indoor lectures and student gatherings at 25% max capacity or 100 people, whichever is less. Movie theaters can open indoors with 25% capacity or 100 people, whichever is fewer. Museums can also open indoor operations with 25% max capacity. Places of worship can open indoors with 25% max capacity or 100 people or 100 people, whichever is fewer. Weddings can move to indoors with 25% max capacity or 100 people. Restaurants can also open indoors with 25% max capacity or 100 people, whichever is fewer. And tattoo parlors and piercing shops can also open indoors with modifications. Again, reading from the press release, at this time, schools K through 12 will remain closed for in-person learning. If data remains stable or improves for additional 2 weeks, schools will be able to reopen for in-person learning. The county is stressing that if our numbers or metrics worsen for 2 consecutive weeks, we could regress back to the purple tier, which could result in some of these reopenings going backward. So to prevent that from happening, to prevent us from going backward, the county is strongly urging residents to get your flu shot and get tested, clean and disinfect frequently, touch surfaces, practice social distancing. Remember to wash your hands with soap and water. Use hand sanitizer with 60% alcohol base. When you can't wash your hands, stay home and isolate if you're feeling sick. So some good news that we're moving from the purple tier to the red tier. But I do want to reiterate and reinforce the county's comments that we need to continue to remain diligent. We need to continue to remember that there is still a pandemic. And so in order for us to continue to stay open and to move forward into possibly even less restrictive tiers, we need to continue to practice good hygiene, get your flu shot, so we can continue to reopen. So in regard to testing, I want to remind folks, we do have 2 testing sites here in Los Banos. One at the community center operated by Golden Valley Health Centers. They're open Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Our second testing center site is open at the fairgrounds. They're open Mondays and Tuesdays from 8 to noon. You can make online appointments for both of those centers. And just one comment I will share, we have heard from Merced County Public Health that it's very important that we get tested, and that if our community does not make use of these testing centers, there could be a possibility of those not being located here in the community anymore. So we could lose those testing center sites if we do not test as a community. So with that update, Mayor, I would recommend the council adopt the resolution continuing the declaration of the local emergency. That's all, Mayor. I think you're on mute, Mayor.
Thank you. And Alex, maybe you could talk a little bit about we are the lowest per capita in the exposure rate as of the last report too.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm looking at per capita number of cases by community line graph, and I don't know. Can't really. I'm refreshing to make sure I have the most recent numbers.
Yeah, I just looked at it. And I thought I saw that Los Banos is still by far the lowest.
This says Livingston for some reason at this point. Oh, no, you're right. Livingston, I'm looking top to bottom. Yes, our city of Los Banos per capita COVID-19 cases, 28.6. And then it goes up from there by community. And something's wrong with my cursor, but yes, city of Los Banos, lowest per capita rate in the county. So thank you for mentioning that, Mayor.
Well, it's important to measure that because I know this council took a lot of flack on some of the actions that we took early on with the recommendation from staff, but it did a lot of good. We get nothing but praises from the Los Banos Community Hospital and Philip Yu the administrator saying that we allowed the staff to lay in the supplies of PPE and preventative measures, of which a cocktail that they developed to keep people alive. And it was now that I look back at it, it was the right thing to do. And we still have the lowest per capita exposure rate, which is a credit to staff, the council, and all the people who contributed towards making this happen. It's in our community. Let me report that we have had not our community, but throughout the 93635 zip code area, we have had 12 deaths because of COVID-19, and 10 of those are within the city limits of Los Banos, and 2 are outside the city limits of Los Banos, but within the 93635 area code, which again per capita is I mean, any death is a tragedy, but we have helped to keep the fatalities down because of what we've done. And again, I can't thank everyone for the cooperation, because as citizens, because wearing these masks does work. Alex has mentioned that we are in danger of losing our testing sites, and that is true. Every week on these Friday meetings or Friday phone calls that we have, and it's not just Los Banos, it's sites throughout the county of Merced. The Merced site at the fairgrounds is in danger of closing because people just aren't taking the testing seriously. So I would get that message out to everyone that please utilize those services, because we worked hard to get them. Remember when we didn't have any? And I'd hate to see these go away. One other statistics that I should mention, it has the Merced County residents' death age summary. And it's no surprise that the 65 plus range throughout Merced County, there are 96 people that have perished 65 and above. The next category is 50 to 64. There are 38 people, and 35 to 49, there are 11 people. And that, again, it should be no surprise to anyone that your age has a tremendous amount to do with how you survive COVID-19. So these are statistics that are provided us by Merced County, and please, everyone, council, staff, people out in the community, please protect yourselves, because this is nothing to fool around with. And if you're not taking this seriously, you're playing with fire, believe me. So you don't want this. Again, I've repeated this many, many times. It's nasty stuff. And if you get it and survive, there could be long-lasting complications from it, and and you could die. So please, again, take this seriously. Council comments? Anyone? Okay. Thank you so much. So do I have? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Alex, could you give information to the public as to how they can go online to register for testing, either at the community center or at the fairgrounds, please?
You're muted. Please, I can't hear.
Thanks, Veronica. Sorry about that. And thank you. To make an appointment for the Golden Valley Health Center testing site, members of the community can call 866-682-4842. Again, that's 866-682-4842. For the testing site at the fairgrounds, appointments can be made online at www.projectbaseline.com/COVID-19. www.projectbaseline.com/COVID-19. And we'll post something to the city's website tomorrow morning with the details on how to register for an appointment. Thank you, Councilmember Lewis.
Are there any other questions? Okay, we want to work our way down in the tiers so more things can open up according to the state. But we have moved into the red tier, and there's some cities that were in the red, and they now may go back to purple, depending upon the exposure rate. So keep up the good work so we can reopen Los Banos as fast as we possibly can. So do I have a City Council Resolution number 6271 as read by title? Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Thank you. Motion by Santos. Do I have a second?
Councilmember Lewis, second.
Okay, motion by Santos, second by Lewis for the approval of City Council Resolution number 6271 as read by title. Mr. Faria?
Yes.
Johnson Santos?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Villalta, yes. And City Manager Terrazas, this is also for the reimbursement of money. Is that also correct? Just to make sure if there is any for COVID-19?
Yes, the continuation of the local emergency provides the ability for reimbursement for funding. Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Okay, item number 9, consideration of the Los Banos membership within Peninsula Clean Energy by adoption of a joint powers agreement, JPA resolution, and introduction, first reading of required community choice aggregation CCA ordinance. Item 9A, City Council Resolution number 6272, requesting membership of the Peninsula Clean Energy Authority, authorizing the mayor to execute the second amended joint powers agreement and appointing the city's director on the board and an alternate director. 9B, ordinance number 1187, authorizing the implementation of the community choice aggregation program in the city of Los Banos by and through Peninsula Clean Energy Authority. And item A is action motion and item B is the first reading and introduction. Okay, and we're going to Director Elms.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. We have a PowerPoint for this particular item. There we go. All right. Next slide. We can go to the next slide.
I'm sorry, we're having technical difficulties. Give me just one moment. There we go.
Okay, so today we're here to talk about a potential membership with Peninsula Clean Energy and community choice aggregation. So I'm going to start with what community choice aggregation is. It's also known as CCE or Community Choice Energy. It means the same thing, and sometimes you'll see them used interchangeably, but it means the same thing. This is a program that allows local municipalities to pool, aggregate their energy demand to purchase electricity separate from local investor-owned utilities. CCAs partner with the existing utility, and in the case of us, this would be PG&E, which continues to provide power transmission, distribution, grid maintenance, and billing services. So the infrastructure continues to be handled through PG&E, but the actual purchase of electricity is through the CCA. Peninsula Clean Energy is a CCA program that provides electricity to all of its member cities and unincorporated areas under a joint powers authority. Peninsula Clean Energy offers competitive rates and clean energy from renewable sources. and we will be discussing Peninsula Clean Energy and their program today. Next slide.
Where won't it go?
I wanted to start with, just for clarification, what is a JPA? You're gonna hear that quite a bit today. And that's a Joint Powers Authority. It's a legally created entity that allows public agencies to jointly exercise common powers. It is not a private business, and it does have independent legal rights. The debts, liabilities, and obligations of the Joint Powers Authority belong to that entity, not the member agency. And the Community Choice Aggregate Program of San Mateo County and all of its 20 cities and towns formed Peninsula Clean Energy, which is a community-controlled, not-for-profit joint powers agency. So we're going to be talking about Peninsula Clean Energy today. Just a bit of background on this particular item. I just wanted to cover how we got to where we are today. Back in September of 2019, the City Council invited Peninsula Clean Energy leadership to provide a presentation and project update on the Solar Right Farm to the City Council. And the City Council at that time directed staff to continue studying community choice aggregate as a potential for Las Banos, a potential choice for us. So after that particular meeting, staff reached out to various community choice aggregates in the state to assess the city's options. We interviewed 7 alternate energy providers. Each provider mainly was concentrated on providing local cities and counties with alternative energy sources.
Okay, that would be great.
And we also learned through that interview process that it was much more beneficial to join an existing CCA than to start our own, as the startup cost to create would be much greater than the benefit of having our own. So we also have learned that because of the presence of Peninsula Clean Energy in the area, the other CCAs were not very interested in partnering with Las Banos or having us join. So with that, we continued to interview and talk to Peninsula Clean Energy. And next slide. In June of 2020, Peninsula Clean Energy provided a presentation to the City Council, and at that meeting, the Council adopted a resolution 6225 to study community choice aggregation and a potential partnership with Peninsula Clean Energy, and authorized a tech study to assess the city's 2018 and 2019 electric load data. Then, at the most recent City Council meeting in September, the Council received the results of the tech feasibility study, which provided a positive result for membership and the CCA for Las Banos joining the CCA program. At that time, the Council directed staff to move forward with the next step in evaluating membership with Peninsula Clean Energy and the launch of a community choice aggregation program for Las Banos, which would start in 2022. So that brings us to where we are today. In this slide, I wanted to highlight the key reasons for pursuing and joining a community choice aggregation program. The biggest of the reasons would be that this would meet the city's goals. First, in reducing greenhouse gas emissions in accordance with our general plan and our guiding policies within the general plan. We have 2 particular policies. One is Guiding Policy 13. This is within the Parks and Open Space section of the general plan, and this is to improve air quality, to promote public health, safety, and Las Banos' environmental quality. And then Guiding Policy 15, to assume leadership in efforts to reduce toxic air pollutants and ozone depleting compounds. Also, a key reason and a goal for the city is to secure sufficient, low-cost, clean sources of electricity to meet our regulatory mandates. As I previously talked at the last City Council meeting, there is SB 32, Senate Bill 32, which is a state mandate that requires local agencies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to 40% below 1990 levels by 2030. And we have to deal with how we are going to reduce those greenhouse gas emissions within our general plan update. So that's something that we're dealing with, but that the city has to strategize about. Pursuing joining a community choice aggregation program would help the city towards our greenhouse gas reduction and our strategy that we're required to implement within our general plan update. Also, we seem to be a good match for Peninsula Clean Energy in that they have complementary winters with San Mateo County. So they have colder winters, and whereas our summers in Las Vegas is when our peak heat is, and when we have a higher electricity load. So our loads complement each other, and this could help with capacity and cost. Next slide. So after the last City Council meeting, the staff was directed to next steps and to review a possible membership with Peninsula Clean Energy and possibly entering into a Joint Powers Authority agreement. So since that last meeting, the city attorney has reviewed the amended Joint Powers Authority agreement and membership with Peninsula Clean Energy. He's prepared the legal documents for the City Council's approval, including the attached Joint Powers Authority agreement and resolution, which are attached to the staff report. And then staff followed up on various questions, which I am going to get to in this next slide. We just have a couple of questions that I wanted to highlight. We do have, which is an upcoming slide, but we do have a frequently asked question on a new website that we've launched to provide some answers to folks in the community, not just residents, but also businesses on what is community choice aggregation or community choice energy and who Peninsula Clean Energy is. So the first question is, will there be advance notice if rates change? The answer to this is within the staff report, but I'm just going to summarize what was provided in the staff report. So Peninsula Clean Energy mirrors PG&E's rates and applies a 5% discount to the generation portion of the rate. Generally, PG&E changes its generation rates on an annual basis. So then Peninsula Clean Energy reviews the proposed rate changes by PG&E with their board, with Peninsula Clean Energy's board. And as a member of the board of directors, if the city of Las Vegas should decide to become a member, we would be part of the discussion and decision making. So to answer this question, the rates are reflective of PG&E's rates, and they're approved by the board. Number two, what is the cost of customer opt-out after the enrollment period? So the opt-out period actually starts 60 days before the rollout, before implementation. So if the city does decide to move forward with membership with Peninsula Clean Energy and joining a community choice aggregation program, there would be 60 days before the launch that businesses and customers, residents, would be able to opt out. And then there's 60 days after launch that customers can opt out as well. After the 60 days of service, for residential, there is a $5 fee for opting out and then a $25 fee for commercial customers. But the customer service representative, when someone calls to opt out, they do have the ability to waive the fee if it's appropriate. So fees could be waived. Third question is, what programs can be tailored for Los Banos, and what is the plan to develop programs for Los Banos? So the programs are available to all current Peninsula Clean Energy jurisdictions, and so then they would be available to Los Banos if we should join. And those programs cover transportation incentives, building incentives, and resiliency. Just to highlight a few, which this is all described in depth within the staff report. There's for transportation, there's monetary incentives for used electric vehicles, for used incentives of $4,000 for used electric vehicles for income qualified residents. There's an incentive of $800, up to $800 for electric bikes. And then an incentive to install electric vehicle charging stations at workplaces, multi-unit dwellings, and municipal locations. For buildings, there's an incentive for low-income home upgrades. There's an incentive for electric heat pumps, water heaters, and technical assistance for jurisdictions to adopt multi-fuel or all-electric building codes for new construction. And these are just programs. This doesn't force the city to have to implement any of these programs. It's just available to the cities if they should decide to implement or utilize these programs that Peninsula Clean Energy offers. And then the last is resilience. These programs are for free portable batteries for low-income, medically vulnerable residents who have experienced power outages due to PG&E events. There's a monetary incentive for homeowners to install solar and storage, and an incentive program for solar plus storage for municipal community service centers and critical infrastructure. That could be applied to city facilities, either existing or future, that the city would build. So if Los Banos does become a member of Peninsula Clean Energy, we can develop additional programs that can meet specific needs of Los Banos and would be available to all jurisdictions that are part of Peninsula Clean Energy. Peninsula Clean Energy does have a strategic plan that targets 20% of all program funding to low-income, underserved communities, which would benefit the city of Los Banos tremendously. The last question is, what is the potential reduction in greenhouse gas emissions for the city once the community choice aggregation program has been launched? And the answer, like the previous questions, is provided in the staff report, but starting in 2021, Peninsula Clean Energy default product will be 100% greenhouse gas free. And if the city should decide to join Peninsula Clean Energy in 2022, at the estimated time that we would launch, all Peninsula Clean Energy customers would generate zero greenhouse gas emissions from electricity. That could be pretty exciting for our community. Next slide. And the next slide will be presented, and the next few slides will be presented by our city attorney, Mr. Vaughn.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacy. Spent quite a bit of time reviewing the JPA agreement at the request of staff. One correction to Stacy's presentation: I did not prepare the JPA document. The document was prepared by PCE, which is actually their second amended agreement. And their amendments, the most recent amendments, were made specifically to allow the city of Los Banos to become a member of the JPA. What I did prepare was the resolution that's in your staff report and the ordinance that's up for consideration tonight for the first reading. So I can address any questions you have on that ordinance in the first reading tonight. If that goes forward, then there'll be a second meeting in 2 weeks to consider both of those documents and giving the public a little bit more opportunity to comment on this before you make your final decision. But anyway, PCA was formed in 2016. I think it was maybe one of the third or fourth CCAs in the state of California. In reviewing the JPA, I learned a lot, and I learned that currently there are 21 CCAs serving the state of California, which are primarily JPAs. There are some Soul cities that are doing this, but primarily and universally, it's JPAs where there are two or more public agencies together forming its own entity in order to provide this service to their community. I looked at a number of JPAs and their agreements, and I specifically looked at the one in Marin County. There's one in Sonoma. There's one in the East Bay of across the bay from the peninsula, Monterey Bay, San Jose. Not surprising, city attorneys like to copy things from other city attorneys, and most of the JPA agreements themselves are very similar. Looks like a lot of them have taken the template from the Marin agreement and followed from there. So there's nothing surprising that I found in this JPA. And this is the way that you form that group to provide the CCA ability to provide the electricity as an alternative to PG&E. So in order to join each of the local agencies that are currently joined to this particular one, in order to enter the JPA, had to do the same thing that we're being asked to do tonight and next time, which is to adopt the resolution and also to adopt the ordinance. Next slide. So just as a review, I think all of you are familiar with JPAs, but they are essentially a separate legal entity from the city, put together by other members of other local agencies. So it isn't the city's organization. The city is a member, and the JPA itself, like Peninsula Clean Energy, is a separate organization in and of itself, independent, for instance, from the city of Los Banos, and independent of all of the other member agencies within the JPA. This particular one is set up very typical. It has indicates what the purpose of the JPA is, which is what Stacy has basically gone through with you. It sets forth the general authority and powers of the JPA, and essentially what the authority and the powers of this JPA is to provide renewable energy as an alternative to PG&E customers delivered by PG&E, and also to provide programs to those customers to deal with greenhouse gases. So that's kind of the main charge of Peninsula Clean Energy, and to do it at a lower cost than what PG&E can do it at. This JPA is served by a board of directors. If the city of Los Banos joined, the city would have a seat on that board of directors. It's made up of a director from each one of the member cities. I believe there's 19 or 20, and then 2 board members from the county of San Mateo, which was financed the putting together the original organizational documents. So if you chose to go forward and join, the city of Los Banos would have a seat on the board of directors. We'd have to choose an alternate. The seat on the board needs to be comprised of a elected official, mayor or city councilman, but the alternate could be a mayor or a city councilman and or a staff member. They do have I found it interesting, in order to kind of maintain their historical perspective, I guess, as to where they've been and where they came from. They have 2 emeritus directors who are former directors. that don't have a voting role on the board, but are members of the board, I think, to provide some continuity to the sitting board. So that's a good thing. Next slide. So in any JPA, the board of directors is basically responsible for the general governance of the JPA activities. So that's what the board of directors is doing, and they have general oversight, just like a city council would, over the activities of the city staff. So that's what the JPA board of governors or board of directors is charged with doing. And they're within the JPA, they have a very typical list of things that they have the authority to do. The main one that I could see is that they set the rates. And of course, their purpose, stated purpose in their JPA is to keep those rates competitive. I think that's code for below what PG&E rates are. And I think all of the 20 member cities have that same philosophy, and that's through the board of directors. In terms of voting, each member has one vote on the board. The city of Los Banos would have one vote, but they also have a weighted voting system. If any member is dissatisfied with the vote through a majority vote, they can call for a weighted vote, and the weighted vote is based on the amount of energy that the particular member's jurisdiction used in the prior year. Los Banos would be fairly typical, I think, of most of the members at 5%. I think there are a couple that are higher users. I think South San Francisco stands out to me as being one of the higher ones with like 15%. But the idea behind the weighted voting is so that some of the bigger jurisdictions have the ability not to get rolled over by a bunch of smaller jurisdictions. So it's a way to kind of keep a check and balance. I believe the attorney for PC indicated that had never happened. So they really never instituted that yet. So, but it's there. It's a good thing. It's a good check and balance. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. That's not something that's typical of a JPA agreement. It seems to be typical of the CCA JPA agreements. Next slide. I'm sorry, this is pretty dry stuff. So I'll try to get through it a little quicker. So this particular agreement expressly indicates, in terms of the legal risk to the city, that our liability is limited as a member. It's essentially the liability of the JPA is the liability of the JPA as a separate entity. It specifically states that, and there's an indemnity clause within the JPA agreement that holds the board of directors harmless for anything that happens in the administration of the JPA. Very typical of a JPA and what you would expect to see in a JPA agreement like this. So essentially, the long and short of it is that a JPA like this shields the city from liability for the activities of the JPA. So the fact that we're a member of the JPA doesn't make the city of Los Banos liable for the activities of the JPA. The JPA is its own separate entity. So the city's potential risk is minimal, if any, in terms of legal risk. Next slide. Keep in mind, this is the JPA or Peninsula Clean Energy's program, not the city of Los Banos's program. The city's going to be a member, but it's the Peninsula Clean Energy's program, which they will offer to the citizens of Los Banos who can opt out at any time. But it's really Peninsula Clean Energy's program, and what the city of Los Banos is doing is joining, because it's required to join by statute, but also having a voice of the direction of Peninsula Clean Energy by having that seat on their board. But it's not a program primarily of the city, it's Peninsula Clean Energy's program. In terms of financial risk, the financial risk of a JPA is again with the JPA, and the financial risk to the city is minimal. I wanted to draw your attention that there are some exit costs. If the city were to decide to exit the JPA within the first 5 years, there is a clause within the JPA that requires reimbursement to Peninsula Clean Energy of the startup costs of getting on board, which I believe are that figure on the bottom of the slide, $187,000. I don't think we would be getting into this with the thought of getting out within 5 years. There would be probably no reason to get out in 5 years, but I just wanted to indicate to you if something went wrong and the city wanted out, there would be that potential liability of the startup costs that the Peninsula Clean Energy fronted to get this going in the city of Los Banos. But again, the creditors of the JPA are the creditors of the JPA, not the city of Los Banos. I did notice in the JPA there was a clause in there about a membership payment required to join, but in talking to the CEO and the attorney for Peninsula Clean Energy, there was not going to be a membership payment due from the city of Los Banos for joining. Next slide. The other area of financial risk within the JPA agreement is terminating the agreement or withdrawing from the agreement. As you might, if you think about it a little bit, the JPA is going to be purchasing or committing to purchase electricity on behalf of the customers within the city of Los Banos. And those are typically long-term type contracts, maybe long-term projects to generate their own energy, like the Wright Road solar farm. So as a member, there's going to be capital improvement costs incurred for the benefit of the customers in the city of Los Banos. There's going to be contracts entered into to make sure that there's enough energy to service the customers within Los Banos. So if Los Banos were to decide to terminate or withdraw, which they can at any time, there could be a financial hit to Peninsula Clean Energy. And the JPA recites that. But the JPA the agreement also states that Peninsula Clean Energy would then have to calculate what that financial burden is and give the city of Los Banos the ability to basically draw out the withdrawal over a period of time so that the JPA can recoup those costs over a period of time. The thought being that if the withdrawal took 12 months or 18 months or something like that, there would be a way for Peninsula Clean Energy to recoup those through the providing the energy during that time, and then the city could exit without any financial liability to Peninsula Clean Energy. So the risk is really pretty low. I think Peninsula Clean Energy people could speak to that, but I think there is a ready market for this energy, and if the city decided to terminate, the chances of us having to pay Peninsula Clean Energy to withdraw are pretty low. Is there another slide? That's it for me. So my efforts were just simply to review the JPA, and I can tell you that the JPA is very typical. It's everything in there is what you would expect to see in a JPA. The voting structure, the purpose, the philosophy behind the JPA, the membership on the board, withdrawal from the JPA. Those are all very common things that you would expect to see in a JPA. I didn't see anything in this particular JPA that cause any red flags or cause me any more concern than if I was reading another generic JPA. And I also compared it to others, the list that I indicated to you, and all of the terms of this particular JPA are very typical. So I'm here to answer any questions regarding the JPA agreement itself.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Could you address the question I asked this afternoon? I was okay with the answer, but I think it's something that we should publicly talk about, and that was in reference to Peninsula Clean Energy being able to make demands upon our rate users to say that a type of air conditioner need to be installed with a high SEER rate in order to receive power, or to say that that construction had to be in a certain way of a home because of if they wanted power, it had to conform to anything that PCE could then dictate to us. And your answer was really clear, and I would just like the public to know that.
So the answer is no. Peninsula Clean Energy cannot dictate to the City of Los Banos in terms of any energy type program. This is really a customer-based program where the customer has the ability to be part of it or not be part of it. They can opt out and go back to having PG&E supplying their energy. So there's nothing in the JPA authority that would allow, for instance, Peninsula Clean Energy to say all of our customer base has to have a particular air conditioning unit or particular water heater. Nothing like that can be dictated. That's essentially a police power of the City of Los Banos, and we're not delegating any of those types of powers by joining this JPA. So, in answer to your question, no. Essentially what Peninsula Clean Energy is doing is they're providing electricity from renewable sources and offering that electricity to the customers within the city limits of the City of Los Banos, who have the ability to opt out if they don't want that clean energy and pay a higher price to PG&E if that's what they decide to do. But the benefit is also that those customers are offered renewable energy programs that are generated by Peninsula Clean Energy, and they're all voluntary. So the accepting this energy at a lower rate is a voluntary thing to the customer, and entering into or taking advantage of any of the programs that Peninsula Clean Energy would offer the community, it's all voluntary. And there's nothing I can see in that JPA that would give them the authority to dictate something about, how the building has to be, any of that kind of thing. So I think I know the answer to your question is no. I hope that was clear.
Well, yeah, for 5 minutes, it was really clear.
I'm sorry.
No. Good job. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's what they taught me in law school, was to talk a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions from council members?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Lewis.
Go ahead, Mrs. Lewis.
I think Stacy has some more slides, but that was just my part of it.
Oh, all right.
Well, I want to ask my question.
Go ahead, Mrs. Lewis.
Since the mayor was able to ask his.
Yes, go ahead, Mrs. Lewis.
I did go to their website and I looked at their board makeup and I read the minutes and what was on the agenda for the September meeting, which I think probably may have been the meeting that Alex attended. And it looks like all of the members of this board, they have a total of 9 members, 2 emeritus members, and they're all in San Mateo County. None in South San Francisco or any other county. It's all San Mateo County members. And they have 12 staff members. One of the things, and the mayor brought up the situation about them dictating to us what kind of equipment one can have in a home when they're building. Now, I know in San Mateo County, there's not a whole lot of building going on because the land is pretty much taken up there. So in their county, they have mandated through this program that you can only install heat pumps. You can only put in induction heating in your home and various other savings that move only towards electricity, nothing towards natural gas. But I guess one of the big things that concerned me, and this was a letter from the staff who happened to be the director of marketing, Mr. KJ Janisky, was the Peninsula Clean Energy Board entering into or looking at agreements regarding political entities, backing political candidates, political initiatives, and these were three areas that they were looking at: whether they were going to restrict sponsorship of members to do this kind of thing, whether they would restrict members and organizations from endorsing political candidates or political entities, and or whether or not the Peninsula Clean Energy would continue to sponsor paid membership fees to organizations endorsing or opposing political candidates. And they went on to name things like the Sierra Club and on and on and on, which we have been victims of to a certain extent down in our area here in regards to chromium-6 and other things that some of these organizations have filed suit against the city of Los Banos. So it brought me pause when I went to their website and I saw just this information. I hear you say that residents have the ability to opt out. There's statutes requirement to join by statute. That was mentioned. Membership payment to join. That there wasn't anything in there about that. And again, that's something that brought concern to me. Why are they not charging us a fee to join if that's in their contract, and the cost to withdraw? So this whole thing came about very, very quickly for us. And I know that we all agreed to move forward and get as much information as possible. But what I'm hearing tonight is a lot of the pros about this organization. And I'm not hearing what the cons are for Los Banos to enter into a contract with this particular Peninsula Clean organization. I think at our last meeting that we had with them, they shared with us that they had approached other cities in Merced County. I'm not sure how far into the valley they went to try to ask other county cities to join in. But I would be curious, outside of just the cities that they made mention of, whether or not they went deeper into the valley to ask other cities if they wanted to join. And if not, why not? We are a different kind of lifestyle here in Los Banos. We're a farming community, and I know the thinking and philosophy of the peninsula is totally different from us. We will only have one vote on this board, whether it's weighted or not. It's still one vote out of 11 members. So there was, a few other things that I read in here, and organizations that are pushing hard on them about how they're to administer bringing in services that are not going to be fossil fuel oriented. And I know that there's certain mandates that are coming down from the state of California by certain dates. But I just want to make sure that we're not jumping into something too quickly here. And we have to make sure our citizens understand very clearly that they have the opportunity to opt out of this, especially people who have solar already on their home. I don't know whether or not this is going to be advantageous to them. Those questions haven't been answered clearly for me. So that's my concern about us moving forward today. I think we need to have more information before we have a first reading and putting this thing in motion and giving our money to them and looking at the possibility of $187,000 to opt out if it doesn't work. So I've heard a lot of positives tonight, but in presentation of projects, especially this serious of a project and any other project that we hear, we need to hear the pros and the cons of why the city needs to do something or why it shouldn't do something. So that's what I have to say on this, and thank you for the time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from other council members?
Yes, I do have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Veronica.
For instance, I know Stacy was saying that the 60 days before the rollout, people are able to opt out. I was just wondering what type of if this were to be passed, what type of notification we would be giving people, especially since, people are pretty stationary now, but people are out and about, they're moving around. I wonder what type of notification we'll be giving them so that they truly have a chance to opt out if that is the case.
So I have a little bit more left to the presentation, which we answer that question. And also to Councilmember Lewis's question, I will also call on Peninsula Clean Energy to provide an answer. But I just want to wrap up the presentation. I just have 3 more slides, which will hopefully address your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Don't let me forget, Stacy, we have a public comment to read too.
Yes. So on outreach, we are requesting actually, and I'll go over on the recommendation, that the council not make a decision tonight on the resolution, which would be membership. But we would like time to provide some outreach to the community. We'd like to educate the community because, as Councilmember Lewis said, this is a big deal. This is going to provide a choice for the community, but we want to educate them on what this means. Your average person doesn't know what community choice aggregation or community choice energy means. And we want to let our community and our businesses know what this means and what their options are. So we want to provide information on how it works. So by law, and Peninsula Clean Energy representatives will speak about the notification process by law, but there are 60 days that's required to notify the customers, and there's an opt-out period, so the customer can opt out. And then after launch, there's another 60 days that folks can opt out, but then there's the 60 days before customers are going to be notified with notifications, letters that this membership with Peninsula Clean Energy, but really the option for Community Choice Aggregation Program is going to launch. So there will be the 60 days before and then the 60 days after, and folks will be notified. But for that whole period before the launch happens, which should be a whole year until 2022, we will be providing, should the city decide to move forward, workshops and information to the community on what this is and what this option is. And that way, each community member knows what their choices are. So we have provided an FAQ, which there's a website that's been launched. It is www.lasbanoschoiceenergy.org. Where we ran into some technical difficulties this week with linking it to the website, but there is a tab there on the home page under quick links to click onto Community Choice Energy, and that will provide information to residents, to businesses. It has a frequently asked questions. It has 15 questions, so a lot more in depth than what was provided to you in the staff report. And it provides resources, which includes a link to the text study that was presented to the City Council, all previous presentations to the City Council, as well as all of the staff reports. And then it has a flyer with information that talks about really the history of how this choice before the council came to fruition. And it provides info that the City Council will be considering a potential partnership and encouraging residents to provide comments and or attend the virtual meeting for October 21st. And it gives a link. So then, like I stated, it describes how it works. And then it also has a link to Peninsula Clean Energy. So anyone interested can also find info on Peninsula Clean Energy directly on their website and learn about them as well. This is going to be launched to the community. We've already done a press release on this information, and we want the community to provide input and to know what is being considered by the City Council. And we will be posting on social media as well through the city's social media platforms. We definitely want the community to provide us feedback, but just to be educated on the option and what the City Council will be considering in the future. So next slide. So these are the potential next steps. At the next City Council meeting, should the City Council decide to move forward, we would be asking for adoption of the Joint Powers Authority Agreement via resolution and the CCA ordinance that's required should the city decide to move forward. Then on October 22nd, Peninsula Clean Energy Board would adopt a resolution approving the amended Joint Powers Authority Agreement. Then potentially on November 19th, Los Banos board member and an alternate would be sworn in as new Peninsula Clean Energy Board members. And then on December 17th, an updated implementation plan would be approved by the Peninsula Clean Energy Board and submitted to the California Public Utilities Commission by the end of the year. And the deadline is December 31st to be able to be eligible to apply. And that would be, we'd have to submit that plan. Peninsula Clean Energy would submit that plan, not the city. And that would be in order to be able to launch in 2022, as there has to be a year period in between. Next slide, which is the last slide. So if there are any questions, staff at this time is recommending that the City Council consider receiving Resolution 6272, which would be for requesting membership to the Peninsula Clean Energy Authority. And staff is recommending to bring the resolution back for consideration on December 21st at the next City Council meeting. And then the second item would be action for tonight to waive the first reading and introduce by title an ordinance authorizing the implementation of Community Choice Aggregation Program in the city of Los Banos by and through the Peninsula Clean Energy Authority. And then the second reading and consideration of adoption would occur on October 21st, 2020. I do have on the line, we have with us Jan Pepper, who is the CEO of Peninsula Clean Energy. We have Sean Marshall, a representative as well, to answer any questions. And then we do have a comment from the public. And so, Mr. Mayor, if we'd like to enter that into the record, then we can turn it over to Jan Pepper, if that's okay, CEO of Peninsula Clean Energy, to provide an answer to Councilmember Lewis' question.
Okay, so why don't we at this time, so we have all the information, why don't we open up, or the see, Bill, do we need a public forum on this? No.
No, this is not a public hearing,
Okay.
but you do have one written
Yes.
comment that's directed at this item.
Yeah, I thought I would read that now so we'd have all the information out. Okay, Director Maloney, are there any other comments that you've received or just the one written after refreshing?
I have just the one written still.
All right, would you read that please into the record?
Okay, regarding the October 7th, 2020 City Council Agenda Item 9, membership in the Peninsula Clean Energy Authority, it is our hope that Council will not move forward ahead with membership. San Mateo County cities, demographics and needs are worlds away from ours in the Valley. And as all current member cities are located on the peninsula, all voting board members are from those cities. To highlight a difference, the city councils of San Mateo, Redwood City, and Menlo Park, PCE members, voted to ban natural gas in new construction, accommodating reach codes, building electrification and electrical vehicle infrastructure promoted by Peninsula Clean Energy. In Los Banos, such codes would increase regulation, red tape, and building costs. Currently, new construction needs in Merced County differ vastly from those on the peninsula. The catalyst for the interest in joining PCE was likely the proximity of their nearby Wright Solar Park. However, tying Los Banos into a community choice aggregation in which all the voting members are so far removed from our region's concerns may not be the best decision for us. CCAs are meant to bring local control to utilities. Yet with Peninsula Clean Energy, the nearest member city is almost 100 miles away. The desires of the cities in San Mateo County will override the needs of Los Banos residents and businesses. My husband Greg and I respectfully ask the Los Banos City Council to discontinue pursuit of membership with Clean Peninsula Energy. And it's signed Catherine Yulee.
Thank you, Director Maloney. Now, Mr. Vaughn, I'm just going to go back to you for just a second. And we've already addressed that question, basically saying that the PCE would not have the authority to ban any type of natural gas or any modifications to homes. Is that correct?
Correct. And I think, and I would defer to the representatives, but I think that those were individual choices made by those individual cities and not through anything that PCE was doing. I would defer to the PCE representatives tonight.
Okay.
And I would just indicate that there are 20, I think there are over 20 cities within San Mateo County that are a part of this, South San Francisco being a city within San Mateo County that's part of this. So there are more than 9 members, and maybe Jan Pepper can shed some light on that as well.
Hi, Jan.
Hi.
Would you like to answer that question?
Sure, I'm happy to answer that question, and I'm happy to address the questions that Councilmember Lewis brought up, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So yes, regarding the REACH codes that 3 of the cities adopted to ban natural gas in new construction, it is each city's decision, and those 3 cities made that decision to do that for their new construction. Other cities have not taken any action. So it depends on your city, and it's totally up to you. We provided information for those cities, and it's up to each city council to do what they want to do. So I wanted to address Councilmember Lewis's comments. So thank you for going to the website and doing your homework. It's always it's always great to see a council member digging in and asking good questions like you have. The meeting that I believe you're referring to, I think was what our executive committee, where we have nine members of the board is on that. The overall board is 22 members, and Los Banos would be the 23rd. So let's see. So I think we talked about the reach codes. You said that we've mandated that you have to have a heat pump and no natural gas. Again, that's each city. When they adopt their updated building codes, they can go beyond what the state code is, and that's what those 3 cities did. But other cities have not done that, and some have, they're just adopted what the state building code is, and that's as far as they're going to go. So we provide support if the city's interested. If they're not interested, that's totally fine too. You mentioned a memo from KJ Janowski, our marketing director, about backing political organizations. So we looked into this because one of our board members, in fact, was concerned that they wanted to make sure that any sponsorships that Peninsula Clean Energy did was not for any organization that was also supporting candidates for office. So, in fact, we declined to sponsor an event that was being put on by the local Sierra Club, because indeed they do give recommendations for certain candidates, and we're not going to do that. So basically, this was a discussion by the executive committee to make sure that we would not be providing any sponsorship or membership to entities that are backing political candidates. So another one was like looking at the local chambers of commerce. So I'm not quite sure how many there are in San Mateo County, but most of them do not back candidates. However, there is one chamber of commerce that does back political candidates. I think it's the city of Pacifica. And so we will not be renewing our membership with the Chamber of Commerce for the city of Pacifica. So we're looking closely at that because it is a sensitive area, and we totally agree with you that it's not appropriate for PCE to be supporting anything like that. Let's see. You asked about other cities that we had talked to in Merced County. We did talk to other cities. We talked to Dos Palos. We talked to Gustine. We talked to the city of Merced. We talked to the county of Merced. And all of them were interested. And in fact, we were at MCAG, and I don't remember if one of you was at that meeting. The mayor was there. Okay. And so to just introduce the idea, because as we were talking about this, one proposal was, would forming a CCA in Merced County be an appropriate thing for MCAG to do? And the overall decision was no, that MCAG had enough on its plate. And we also learned kind of about the relationships of the cities on the east side of the county and the relationship on the west side of the county, and some of the important things that need to be considered. So we understand those political issues. So we have talked to the other cities. Other cities were interested. Gustine was interested. They're all kind of watching you. And so our sense is that if Los Banos does go forward, that some of the other cities will follow suit. So they're seeing you as kind of the leader, and just kind of watching what you do, certainly on the west side of the county.
Jan, can I interrupt you for just a second?
Yes.
Mrs. Lewis, they came, Peninsula Clean Energy had an agendized item on the MCAG agenda a few months back. and they spoke about MCAG joining as a JPA. And I have, over the months, specifically said that I did not want to join a JPA where the profits earned from the city of Los Banos would then have to be, I'd have to vote to get our money back. So that's why in this case, we would not be joining a JPA in Merced County because that isn't something that would suit us. And we've spoken about this before. So with this, what Los Banos has, Los Banos will keep. And being part of this JPA means that we're going to receive power, and it's not at a 5% discount at a minimum. And that we would not have to be part of another JPA to vote to find out how Merced County would then use those funds, of which I was totally against, because I did not want to vote to get my money back. And not my money, the city of Los Banos' money, or any incentives, and have anyone else in control of that. So Jan then took that to heart and said, okay, so this is the current configuration that they came up with. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jan.
No, that's fine. Clearly, you understand that all better than I do. You also mentioned about different lifestyle, that you're more of an agricultural area than the peninsula, which is true in large part. There are agricultural areas on the San Mateo coast. Half Moon Bay, Pescadero is a large agricultural area. So we do have a number of customers that are similar to yours in that they're ag customers. But we also have cities that are similar. There's certainly some cities that are very wealthy communities in San Mateo County. There are others that are not wealthy, such as East Palo Alto and South San Francisco and San Bruno and portions of Redwood City and part of the coastal area. So I think there are a lot of areas where there is a philosophy that is similar to yours, and we're certainly aware that that your area has been characterized by the state as an area disadvantaged community. We are focusing a lot of our efforts, at least 20% of our program budget, to support low income and disadvantaged communities, because that's very important to us. Because we want to make sure that no one is left behind. People who have a lot of money can go out and buy their own solar system, and there's no reason for us to be supporting them. We want to make sure that people that don't have similar means are able to upgrade their homes if they want to, and get solar on their homes and save money because of that. So that's a big part of what we're focusing on. And then I think you talked about those who currently do have solar on their homes. Is this advantageous to them? It actually is. So if you have solar on your home, do you have solar on your home, Councilmember Lewis? No. For those who do have solar on their home, if your solar system produces more electricity in a certain month than what you actually consume, then under PG&E's program, they will pay you for that excess, but they pay it at a rate lower than what you buy electricity from them. But what our program is, if you have solar on your house and you produce more electricity than you consume in that month, we will pay you the Eco 100 rate, actually the highest rate that we have, because that's what we're selling, the retail rate that we're selling 100% renewable energy at. So that's what we compensate people for. So actually, you're better off with us if you have a solar system, and if your system produces more, you'll get paid for that. And we send a check out. If anyone has a credit each April that's over $100, we actually send them a check for that. If the credit is less than $100, we just carry that credit forward. And then the $187,000 if it doesn't work out. Basically, when we put the JPA together, we talked about, what would be fair to the current members. We have paid for the technical study. If you were to do this on your own, there would be, in our projections that you saw last couple weeks ago in the technical study, is there's actually a loss to Peninsula Clean Energy for the first couple of years because of the resources that we need to procure on your behalf in order to get you started. Basically, the energy and another product called resource adequacy. It's a couple $1 million. So, and then over time, once you get going, then the expectation is that that investment will get paid off. So it's just to, the JPA just has that in there, that if you decided in a period of time where the costs to launch your program were not recovered, that you would pay that back to the organization. But everyone's been in PCE, everyone's had the opportunity to leave, and no one has done that so far. And I think, as the attorney said, people have the opportunity to receive cleaner electricity at a lower rate than what they're paying PG&E, and they can't opt out. So far, we've had less than 3% of the customers opting out. So, why not save money if you can? Why not get a better product if you can? So I hope that answers your questions, and if there's more, I'm happy to address those.
Thank you for your answers. I do have a couple more questions in regards to that first response regarding the marketing director's discussion with the board about the political affiliations and supporting political affiliations, and you said that they decided not to do that. Was that done by a vote and codified that they're not going to support chambers, political candidates, organizations that could persuade this particular board? It sounds like from what you said, they made a decision to opt out and not do this at all. Although option 3 from the minutes that I looked at says to allow Peninsula Clean Energy to continue to sponsor or pay membership fees to organizations that endorse political candidates and or political entities. So you're saying that they made a decision not to. Was there a vote on that, and is it in writing? Is it codified that they're not going to do that kind of stuff?
Let's see. This was just at the executive committee. I don't think it was a discussion item. It wasn't an action item. Okay. So they were generally in support. They were in support of the first option, which was to and I don't have let me see if I can pull up the staff report. There we go. So the first option was to restrict sponsorship or membership to organizations that do not endorse or oppose political candidates. Mm-hmm. The second one was to restrict sponsorship or membership to organizations that do not endorse or oppose either political candidates or political initiatives. So they thought that was too restrictive. So they agreed to restrict the sponsorship to organizations that don't endorse or oppose political candidates. So that eliminated funding for some environmental advocacy organizations. It eliminated funding the Pacifica Chamber of Commerce because that chamber endorses candidates. Those were the two, and then that restricted us. We would not sponsor the Sierra Club fundraiser that they had asked us to be a sponsor of. So we told them, no, we're not going to do that because they endorse political candidates. They did not they did not go so far as restricting sponsorship of or membership of organizations that endorse political initiatives, because in that case we would then have to leave all of the chambers in the county, and they want to be, we wanted to continue to be members of the chambers because they're pro-business. It's a good opportunity for us to have to be able to interact with our customers who are small businesses. So that was where they came out. So I don't know that I will have to check. I would have to check further with you, but they did agree that that's the policy that is going to be followed.
Okay, so overall, this is a decision based on what these cities and the executive board are looking at. How does that affect your company and any other cities or counties that may want to come in and may not agree with this kind of thing? Does that affect them in any way, or is is your business telling them that this is not an appropriate spending of money, or are you just leaving it to their particular organization in their area and their county to make decisions about this kind of thing for them? I guess where I'm concerned at is, how does this, if we join an organization like this and they're supporting things that we may not support, how does this affect monetarily how money's being distributed as far as percentages of helping communities, helping low-income families, helping all the things that the state is going to require to be done at some point when money's being spent supporting political entities that you may or may not agree with. And I don't know if that's just coming out of their portion of money that they're allocated, or however this money is divided up, which I'm still not that clear on. Or if not, does this affect everybody that's a part of this agreement?
Yeah. So the money is not. The money is not divided up among the member agencies. So as for being a member of the JPA, what it means is that the businesses and the residents of Los Banos would now be getting their generation service from Peninsula Clean Energy instead of PG&E. So we would be sourcing the electricity for you to serve your load as well as everyone else's load, and that's really the basic of what we are doing. Money that
before you go any further on this, Jan, and excuse me for interrupting. Just make it very simple and plain for people who may be listening and looking in on this meeting.
Yeah.
Why then? What importance is it for Los Banos to sit on a board with cities in the Peninsula area? What benefit is it to Los Banos?
Well, the board of directors makes the decisions on what the content of the electricity offering is going to be. And they've made the decision that it's going to be 100% greenhouse gas free. This year it's 50% renewable. Next year we're going to increase that to 60% renewable. And by 2025, it's going to be 100% renewable energy that's delivered to all of the customers. Then the board also makes decisions on what the rates should be. So the board has made the decision that Peninsula Clean Energy's rates will be 5% below what PG&E would have charged. So, those are kind of the key basic decisions. The board also approves contracts where we contract for power. For example, the Wright Solar Project right outside of Los Banos, the board made the decision for us to enter into a 25-year power purchase agreement with the company that built that project, so that we are getting all of the output from that project. And paying them a certain amount of money for every kilowatt hour that's generated from that project.
Okay.
So those are the kinds of decisions the board makes. And there's no taxpayer money that goes to this JPA. It's all of the money comes in from the electricity that people pay. Just like PG&E doesn't tax you, right? You pay your PG&E bill, and they provide you the power. So in this case, you pay your PG&E bill, but then now will be a line item on it that is for Peninsula Clean Energy, because we're now providing the generation, the electric generation. PG&E sends that money to us every day based on when people pay their bills, and then we use that money to buy more electricity, and any excess that we have is used for other programs like the electric vehicle incentive program, which the board votes on and decides whether or not the money should be spent on that, or a low income incentive program for people to get used electric vehicles, or another program to help people upgrade their homes so that they're more comfortable to live in. So that's what the board does.
Yeah, the numbers that you gave in the beginning, that the board decided by this year we have to do this, and by this year we have to do that, that means that the city of Los Banos would have to comply with that as well. Am I correct on that?
I'm sorry, you cut out for
gas-
just a second there, so I'm not sure I heard everything.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. You made a statement at the beginning when you were, this last statement that you made, that the board makes decisions about, by the year 2020, 2025, we have to do this, and by the year, whatever years that you made, stated, because I didn't write them down, these things have to happen. So this applies to Los Banos as well. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that would apply to anyone who's a member of the JPA. That those are the goals.
They've been at this for a while and meeting certain goals. What happens if Los Banos can't meet these goals?
You don't have to meet the goals. We're Peninsula Clean Energy. That's our job, is to make this happen. So Peninsula Clean Energy, we as a staff, we have 28 staff members right now. We work to contract for the power, and we do everything. So just like your city staff runs your city, we are the staff that runs Peninsula Clean Energy. So you as the city council make the policy decisions on what you want your city to do. The Peninsula Clean Energy Board of Directors gives us as staff the direction on what we're supposed to do. We'll come, just like your city staff comes to you with recommendations. They do the analysis, they recommend a course of action for you to take. You either say yes or no. We are similarly situated where we as staff who have all been working in the renewable energy and the utility industry for years. I've been in this industry for over 30 years. We're the technical experts in this field, and we bring these programs and suggestions to the board, and they say yay or nay. The overall mission of the organization, and we did a strategic plan, and I think we provided that to you, is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through the energy sector. And the way we do that is we're providing cleaner and greener electricity by tackling transportation to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles by helping people move to electric transportation and reducing the use of fossil fuels in buildings. So, it's up to you how engaged you want to be in any of these programs for the city. You can say, yeah, we're all in. We help us achieve these goals, or you can say, we're not really interested in that. So it's up to each city to decide on its own whether they want to kind of get engaged in a project or not.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that helps explain how we operate.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you. Let's go back to item 9A, City Council Resolution number 6272, requesting membership in the Peninsula Clean Energy Authority, authorizing the mayor to execute the second amended joint powers agreement and appointing the city's director on the board and the alternate director. Do I have a motion for 6272?
Mayor, if I might interrupt, that resolution is to be addressed at your next meeting.
Oh, at the next meeting.
It was on for tonight for
Yeah.
just to introduce you to it.
Okay, so we're deferring
The real action would be if someone would like to introduce ordinance number 1187, which is, as you know, not approving it, but it's waiving the first reading and introducing it. And then we'll have this 2-week period to roll it out to the community for further comments and consideration. And then at your next meeting is when you would consider adopting both the resolution and the ordinance.
Okay, so the final adoption of 1187, if it goes forward, would be at the next meeting, and then 6272.
Yeah, staff
Okay.
wanted to stretch it out a little bit to give the community a little bit more time to comment to you folks and to
All right.
at the meeting. So nothing you're doing tonight is doing more than introducing that ordinance, basically teeing it up for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I might, just a process check, yes, just to follow up on the city attorney's comments. We wanted to provide the community and some additional time to provide us input, to review that frequently asked questions document that we've prepared. So we'll be preparing a website that we'll be rolling out shortly that the community can go to for more information on Peninsula Clean Energy. So again, that 2-week period is providing the community that opportunity to do a little more research, to become a little more familiar with the program before the council adopts the resolution in front of you this evening.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go on to item 9B then, ordinance number 1187, authorizing the implementation of the Community Choice Aggregation Program in the city of Los Banos by and through Peninsula Clean Energy Authority. And this is the first reading, the waiving of the first reading, the introduction. Is there anyone who would like to do that?
I'll
Mr.
make
Freya.
the motion. You may.
Okay.
Move to waive the first reading of ordinance number 1187 as read by title.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been motioned by Mr. Freya, second by Mrs. Santos for the waiving of the first reading of ordinance number 1187. And Freya?
Yes.
Santos?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Lewis?
No.
Villalta? Yes. Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Freya?
I move to introduce ordinance number 1187 as read by title.
Mrs. Santos?
Yes.
Okay. Freya?
Yes.
Santos?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Excuse me.
Jones?
Yes.
Lewis?
No.
Villalta, yes. Motion carries, and thank you. And in 2 weeks, we'll talk about resolution 6272, and then if there's a final approval after input from the citizens. Okay, are we done with this, Mr. Vaughn? For right now?
This is Stacy's item, Your Honor, Mayor, but I'm done.
Okay, Stacy?
Yes, we'll be back on October 21st. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. Let's go on to item 10. Thank you from Peninsula Clean Energy, both of you, for attending this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, that you too. Advisement of public notices, item 10. Director Elms?
We have one hearing, public hearing item. This is for a mobile food vendor permit. This is not issuing another permit. This is actually an existing food truck that's located at the hospital. It is being eliminated from that site, from the hospital. They put together a tent for COVID purposes and for triage that skewed their parking area, and because of that, they've asked the mobile vendor to relocate somewhere else. And so that mobile food vendor found a new location. This is for Tacos La Patrona. They will be located at 1100 H Street, which is where the car guys are located. This is where, for us old timers, I guess I would say, have lived here a long time. That's Paradiso Automotive, where the new cars used to be sold, the new car lot. So that particular item is going to be held on Wednesday, October 14th at 5:30 on the go-to meeting platform, and the link will be on the Planning Commission's agenda. That concludes my report.
Boy, if you're an old timer, Mrs. Lewis, Mr. Faria, and I are petrified.
For the record, I was born in Los Banos, so that's 36 years worth of being a Los Banos.
Oh, okay. I'll accept that. All right. Does that conclude your report?
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go on to 11, City Manager's report. Alex?
Continuing on the parks theme this evening and following up on Mr. Himes' comments, we do have several meetings coming up in the month of October. One on the statewide park program grant related to Pacheco Park on October 15th. That'll be a virtual meeting. Details on how to log in are available on the Parks and Rec Facebook page. Then on October 17th, we'll be having a second meeting on that grant application. Just as the council is probably aware, we do score more points the more outreach we do. So we're encouraging folks to attend, provide their public comment, and that will help us as we move forward in that grant process. Then October 20th, Parks and Rec Commission meeting. And then out into November 12th is the Tree Commission meeting. So again, continuing with the Parks and Rec theme, those are some upcoming meetings we have scheduled, some upcoming community meetings. That's all I have this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's go on to item 12. Report update on Merced County Association of Governments, MCAG, and Measure B Committee. Well, I do want to tell you that the West Side Commuter Service study is going forward. MCAG approved the money for that, and it won't be done during the time that I am mayor, but whoever takes over in council, please monitor this because we do want to know the results, because what we'd like to do is get bus service over the hill, and that will reduce the carbon emissions or vehicle miles traveled, and we'll have a safer way for people to commute to the Bay Area and then catch either light rail or busing. So it's something, please watch out for that in the future months when it's finished. And again, MCAG has put up all the money to fund this, and it's already in progress. Okay, the next thing is they've also initiated a study for the tipping fees. And as you know, the tipping fee is what it costs us to dump a ton of garbage. And ours is like $40.27. Along with the city of Merced, we pay the highest rate, Los Banos and Merced. And the other cities then are given a break based on distance from the center where the garbage is dumped. and the difference is almost $9 a ton between cities. So I said I didn't think that was fair, and I've asked for a tipping fee study, of which they are approving, and that tipping fee study then will come up with a rate of what everyone will pay for the tipping of the garbage. And I just felt that and thank you for the backing, council, to go ahead with this, because power is in the masses, and the city council has done wonderfully. And when I brought these issues to the city council, that we need to go forward with them. Also, the recyclables. Los Banos is going to have the ability, as will other communities, when all the recycling starts. And right now, Merced, the city of Merced, Los Banos, and parts of the county are doing recycling. So, so what will happen is that we will not be beholden to anyone, and we will be able to go out and get the best rate for our recyclables. And this in turn right now is going to save us a ton of money, because the cost for the 2-year extension with our present hauler through MCAG would have been almost $400,000. And so citizens of the city of Los Banos are not paying that. MCAG for the first year is going to pick up the tab for the recyclables, because the problem was that not all the cities were using the entity that Los Banos was going to be required to use for recyclables. And so when I discovered this, I brought it forth, and I brought it forth to you, of which you backed me, and then brought it forth to MCAG, and they agreed that yeah, if all the recyclables weren't coming to one entity, how can you hold the city of Los Banos and other entities who are recycling responsible to say that they had to go to that entity? So again, I'm telling you, it's power in numbers, it's power in the organization, and you've done a wonderful job with that. So we're still working on the expansion of Billy Wright, which is, please monitor this in the future, because we're going to need that expansion. So Los Banos will not have to pay transportation to Highway 59 for its garbage. And just don't ever cave into that one. And the last one is that new services. Now, by 2022, state says everyone has to recycle. You have to do organic recycling. All cities are going to have to do green waste recycling. They're going to have to do recyclables in general. But with COVID-19, it may be my prediction that they may delay that till 2023 or 2024. So, council, I'm just putting this out to you. Don't agree to any new services. Don't agree to add on to any new recycling contract or anything, or recycle anything else until the other entities in the county are going to do it too. Because why should the city of Los Banos and basically Merced start adding on what we're going to do as far as recycling with organic waste and other things for commercial and expand our residential recycling until everyone else gets on board? It's very important that there's equity and everyone is doing the same thing. I mean, I want to save this planet as much as the next person, but bottom line is we cannot be responsible, the city of Los Banos, for the diversion of recyclables and then allow everyone else not to do it. So that may go into effect by 2022 unless it's delayed. The city of Los Angeles is already asking for a delay. And the power that Los Angeles has, they may get it. And so that may go into effect for the whole state. So please watch this issue. And I will be bringing this forward in the white paper to talk about everything that we've worked on as a city council, and to make sure that we're getting our fair share of everything. So that's just something else to watch out for. So as far as MCAG report, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you. Okay, let's go on to item 13, City Council member reports. And tonight we'll start with Mrs. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Well, I have just one item, and it's going to take me a few minutes to bring it forward. I'm going to make a council request, and I'd like this to move forward with the council approval as quickly as possible. On September the 26th, we had a fatal accident in the 1600 block of West I Street where a resident was sitting in her vehicle, and as a result of a high speed, more than likely from Pacheco Boulevard, and apparently running the stop sign on Birch and West I, that high speed vehicle took her life while she was sitting in the car, and a member of that high speed vehicle was ejected through the one front windshield of that vehicle. I think we all got an email on that from our chief of police. But what came to mind was the mere fact that West I Street has been a speed trap since the late 80s, early 90s when houses were built there. Originally, the speed on that street was 30 miles an hour. There was a traffic study done, and the speed was raised to 35 miles an hour. Unfortunately, under the old building type development, arterials and collector streets had houses that were fronting these streets and residential areas. The two that I can think of right offhand would be West I Street on the southern end of Pacheco, and also 7th Street, which turns into Stonewood, I believe, going north. The design and the way that things are built now is that collectors and most arterials and most collectors do not have residents fronting those streets. They have fences or either masonry walls, and so therefore the effect on people's life is a lot different. And the reason I'm bringing this forward is because I reviewed the ordinance that we passed in March of 2017 regarding the calming speed cushions in the city of Los Banos. And in the opening of the discussion of the presentation, it indicated that one of the primary functions of our police department is to monitor and provide a safe driving experience on our city roads. However, we don't have enough police to monitor every single road in the city of Los Banos. And the way our current ordinance is written, there are 15 criteria that you have to meet minimally in order to be considered to have speed cushions. In the speed cushion policy and procedures, it indicates that in order for a street to qualify for a speed cushion installation, certain engineering criteria, i.e. traffic volume, speed, street functions, etc., have to be met. For instance, a street defined as an arterial or a collector, or one that is on a main emergency access street in a neighborhood, would not be suitable for speed cushions. So that encompasses West I Street. And over the years, there have been a number of accidents, people having their property damaged, other accidents of people losing their lives, just multiple car accidents. And it doesn't matter if it's day or night. West I Street from Pacheco to the southern end where it dead ends is just a speedway. And people don't allow their children to play on West I Street, or one of that being the main reason. In the ordinance, it says that 70% of the property owners have to agree to the installation, and 100% of the property owners that have the cushions fronting their property have to agree. Now, I remember when we looked at this ordinance, I talked to staff in Stockton, and they had some pretty restrictive criteria for their speed cushions, and then they kind of backed up a little bit because they had situations such as ours where they couldn't just watch every street in their community. But part of their ordinance indicates that in order to prove speed cushions to be in a community on a street, it's a 50 plus 1 vote, a simple majority, not 70%. And there's nothing in there that I read that requires 100% of the people where the speed hump is going to be to agree upon it. What they do is once the application is submitted, and I think that only requires 10 signatures, not everybody on the street, they call for a meeting of the community, and it's the surrounding streets, and they talk about how this is going to happen, how you can get this mitigated. So to try to make this short, I would like to see this brought back, because one life lost as a result of an ordinance that we have that says that we cannot have speed humps on the arterial road or a collector road, to me, it just doesn't work. And I know that if our fire truck can go down a street that has a 25-mile-an-hour speed zone and get the job done, it could get the job done on the southern end of West I Street. The northern end of West I Street, after you cross Pacheco, is 30 miles an hour. But in the residential part of it, it's 35 miles an hour. And, that means 55, 60, whatever people want to drive. And people are still blowing the stop sign on Birch and I and on Cardoza. And that Cardoza and West I stop sign took a very long time to get it into that community. So I'm asking the council to please consider life being more important. And we need to reconsider these neighborhoods that were built a long time ago that are possible arterials or collectors, and allow these communities to have the speed cushions, and also relook and visit at the fact that we're requiring 100% of people to agree to do something. A simple majority is good enough. And I know there are people that live on this street that own homes that don't even live in this country anymore. So it can be a very difficult thing to make this happen. And to me, life is important. And it's important that our emergency vehicles, our fire trucks be able to get down the roads. But we can't have people in our community losing their lives because we have a street that's totally dark and people that are speeding down the street day and night. It makes no sense to me. So I'm requesting that this be brought back and that we review this as quickly as possible so that any of these arterials that are built in older communities can submit a request if they're having issues in their community with speeding. It was just terrible to see this happen, and it broke my heart when I live on the street. And I remember back in the early 90s, 94, 95, I brought a completely signed petition to city council about speeding and issues on this street. So it's not like it's a new thing. But to see one of your neighbors lose their life because someone was under the influence of alcohol or drugs or maybe both, speeding at a high speed that would take out not only her vehicle, but 5 other vehicles, and then that car moved further down the street and hit another vehicle, and the people, a person in that vehicle gets ejected out, is just, I can't fathom that anymore. I just can't. So I'm asking the council, please, to consider life in Los Banos. Our police department can't be everywhere on every corner monitoring everyone that speeds. We've got to do something better to help the residents in our community. And I think there's enough talk on the street about this accident that people are concerned. that this is still going on in our city. And that's my request and report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And we'll have this on the next agenda for the review of the speed cushion policy. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, my only comment would be, let us, I recognize the desire to move very quickly. I just don't know what our October 21st agenda will look like. If I might work with Councilmember Lewis to follow up on your comments and agendize your Councilmember request for as soon as possible. But the October 21st agenda could be, it's a long one, it looks like. And I want to give this the time that it merits. So if I might follow up with Councilmember Lewis to find the right agenda for the request. That would be my only comment.
Okay, and this is just to see if there's, we're not going to start any initiation of any study until the council approves by majority vote whether it's something that they want to take on. So this isn't something that staff has to put a lot of thought into at this time, because we just have to know if staff wants to move this forward or not. But I'll allow you and Mrs. Lewis to work that out, and then we'll go from there.
Right, and the decision would be council's decision whether or not to move this forward.
Yes, before we spend any time on it. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Faria.
So, Councilmember Lewis, I will follow up with you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Of course,
Mr. Faria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very pleased to see where our COVID numbers are improving, opening up. We've got our parks running again. Keep the masks and distancing, and keep those numbers coming down. And pretty soon we'll all be able to get back to being together again, which is I'm looking forward to very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Santos.
Thank you. I think I'd have to definitely side with Mr. Faria and say that, yes, I'm happy to see that we're able to allow people to go in the buildings again and things like that. So everyone still be careful and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
No report tonight.
Thank you. And all I have is I had made a request to look into graffiti on private property, and we're still researching that before we bring that forward for a council approval to see if we need to go further, to see if there's anything that we can do within the law to have the city impose any kind of penalties on anyone who doesn't want to paint their property once it has graffiti on them. So we're still working on that. Thank you. Okay, if there are no further comments, I would like to adjourn this meeting at 7:07 p.m. Thank you and good night.